Guys, don't relocate to Kenya. You will fail. Kenya is not for everybody. I know that runs counter to almost everything I talk about in this channel. But just give me 10 minutes. I'm going to explain. Welcome to RELOCATE, folks. It's late at night. It's probably 11:30, almost midnight. I'm just wrapping up my day's work. I have had a very long day. I started out at 7 in the morning out at some construction sites, and I've been running around all day. And when I get back home, this is when I get to do my stuff because I still have my day job in Long Beach. And so when it's night, it's daytime over there. So I get to respond to emails, do what I do with my regular job. And so I often tell folks I build houses during the day, and at night I teach and work with graduate students. So anyway, folks, if you are joining us for the first time, this is RELOCATE. I'm in Kisumu, Karating, in Western Kenya. I go back and forth between Long Beach, California, and where my home is, but also live in the village in Kisumu in Kenya. My whole plan is to eventually move back here permanently, which is a dream that many people share. There are folks who are born and raised in Africa who want to come back. There are lots of black folks who have never been to Africa but want to come to Kenya. And so I talk a lot about those topics. I share what I've learned, and I'm also open to learning from you. And in doing so, I help folks with all kinds of things, particularly around real estate, construction, relocation, and all that. So if you need help, my number is below. So yes, I'm a little tired, but give me about 10 minutes. I'm going to power through this 10-minute video. As long as you stick with me, we are going to talk, and then I'll let you go. So again, thank you for joining us. If you have not subscribed yet, please add your name to the group. It keeps us going. This work is not easy, but we are here because of passion. Passion led us here. So all right, folks. The truth is, there are many people who relocate to Africa or to Kenya successfully. I have seen so many of these examples, and I see more every other day. But the truth is, in as much as many of us relocate successfully, there are a lot of people who move to Africa or move to Kenya specifically and fail. And sometimes fail so miserably that they almost never recover from that experience. And so I don't want to give the impression that this is a smooth transition where we come in, it's all fun and games, enjoy the beauty that we have in Africa, and live forever. I wish it were true that way for everybody, but it's not. For some people it works, for others it doesn't. So I'm going to give you reasons why I see folks fail, at least in my experience, so that if you're thinking about these same ideas, you're not just jumping head first without doing the work it takes to transition. So I'm also curious, for those of you who have moved, please share some of the things that have worked for you. And people who have moved to all kinds of places in Africa, whether it's West Africa, South Africa, different parts of the continent. Many successfully, but a lot of folks are failing. So let's talk about Kenya specifically and the examples that I've seen, because some of these guys are actually people I know personally in my life. So I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios where I think these people fail and the things you need to watch out for. Number one, there's a group of Kenyans specifically who have lived abroad for a long time. And I've seen this in different election circles, starting with 2008, 2012, I think, and all this in between, where there are people who chose to move back to Kenya because they thought their favorite politician was going to win. And so then they're running around because the Kenyan politicians, I don't know whether other African politicians do this. When Kenyan politicians come to the US or diaspora, they're incredibly nice. They're very accessible. We talk with them. We host them. Some of them actually live in our houses when they're in diaspora. I've actually had some of them live in my house in Long Beach. They're wonderful. Wait till you meet them when they're back here. Something else. So you see these folks who are misguided, who, because they think they're friends with politicians, only because they hang out with these folks in diaspora, they're like, hey, I promise you're going to get this, you're going to get that. Then they abandon their jobs. They take off, they sign off, they sell their houses, and come back to Kenya thinking that their favorite politician is going to win. And as always, you know what happens. excuse me, their guy or their woman fails miserably, or even when their guy wins, immediately they forget about you. So you show up, it's like, hey, I'm here. You are supposed to make me like minister in charge of the universe. I'm here with my papers. I schooled in America. I have XYZ. At that point, you are completely useless. And then life begins to unravel. So never, never, ever relocate because you are hoping that there will be some change, or you are hoping that somebody is going to do something for you. Your relocation plan should have as little as possible to do with other folks or decisions made by other people. I always say that when you're relocating, to the greatest extent possible, think about independence. I'm coming back home. There are many things I'm going to have to figure out on my own or with help, but I'm going to try to not depend on people to do certain things so I can relocate. That is one of the fastest ways to get in trouble. The second group of folks that fail are people who have lived in diaspora for a long time, have been investing in doing things through their connections on the ground without any sense of accountability. So I have seen so many people who, quote unquote, build houses, buy property and do all that, and they think it's all set. They've not been to Kenya a long time, maybe because they didn't have the paperwork or whatever the reason. And then you decide, oh, I'm all set. These people have been laying the ground for me to be ready to come home. And then you resign from your job, you sell your stuff, and then you travel back to Kenya. And then when you hit the ground, reality hits. You find out that these ondongchodas you've been relying on, and ondongchoda is just a Greek term for people who are less sophisticated. These ondongchodas you've been relying on have done nothing to prepare you for your return. In fact, when you show up, they won't even be there at the airport to wait for you. The moment they know you're on, they scamper because they know they've messed you up. So you come back home, and the worst part of it is that some of these folks actually did not have legal paperwork in diaspora. So you buy that one-way ticket, you hit home, and you realize whatever you thought you had here does not exist. Or if it does, it's not there to the extent that it will take care of you. Life can be extremely cruel. When you're back home, you have no way to get back, and you've been messed up. So you're stuck. In fact, for those who have legal paperwork, citizens, when that happens, oftentimes they just have to buy the ticket. And in fact, sometimes they don't even have the money to buy the ticket back to diaspora. The lucky ones are able to go back and figure out something. There's also a group of folks that I say relocate. I would say these people are simply, I would call them duello, just plain duello. And I don't know what duello is in English, so somebody who knows this will help me. There are folks who will do like a fundraiser, they prepare folks, they ask for donations like, hey, I'm relocating, I'm moving back finally to Africa, please support me and all that. And then we all come together in diaspora, we do like a ceremony for them, we give them gifts and all that. They come home, they take all that money, they come and build stuff and they do all that, and then they sneak back. And then randomly once in a while you run into them into Costco and you're like, dude, I thought you had moved. I get that question too when folks run into me in the US, because oftentimes my times are not exactly perfect. So when folks run into me like, dude, I thought you moved. People don't always say everything they mean online. And some of you may think you know me, of course, but again, online, I only share like maybe 2% of my life. So don't just take people at face value and think that when they say they're going to move, they really mean it. There are people who have learned to use this process to make money from other Kenyans. Because in many communities in the US, for example, there's this tradition that when somebody is moving, we come together, we celebrate, we even do fundraiser for them, they go home. I've seen folks, there's actually a guy I know who has done this twice. And the other day he was trying to do it the third time, like, dude, you think we're stupid, right? Because he collects money, comes home, does his investment and all that. Then a few months later, he sneaks back. There are those who do that. Now, the third group of folks who come and fail are people who, before they move, they have not given themselves enough time to adjust. Meaning you've been gone for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, and then you wake up one morning and you're like, this is it, and Many of us get to that point. You buy a ticket, you come home. When you arrive, you realize how different home is and how different you are. Within about like 2, 3 months, you start missing home. And often these folks don't have anything constructive to do at home. Trust me, Kenya can be incredibly boring if you don't have anything to do. Uh, there's plenty of stuff that you can do, plenty of stuff. But if you think you're going to come home and just sit around and do nothing, Kenya can be really boring. In fact, I had a friend of mine who works online, who tried working online at home, but within like 3, 4 months, he or she was done. It's like, no, I'm moving. Because you start thinking about some of the comforts you're used to. And that leads us to the next group that fails. There are people who skip the most important part of moving, which is the mental transition. Physically, you can buy a ticket, you can come home, you can do all of that. But mentally, if you have not gotten to that point in life, then you're going to fail. Because when you come home, even if you're comfortable, I've seen people start missing America or start missing Europe. And then they keep on comparing. If I was home, there would be no blackouts. If I was home, I would have like high-speed internet. If I was home, there's blah, 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 blah. And so they're always constantly comparing home, US, home, abroad, whatever that may be. And so mentally, they've not made that transition to Africa. Those folks only last a couple of months or maybe a year the most, and they go back. Yeah. So mentally, you have to get to a point in your life where not only is this idea real, but you have made peace with it. That is all you think about. Like for me, when I'm home, I do everything possible to not think about America. But of course, I can't avoid it because I still have part of my life over there. I still live and work in America. So mentally, I'm home. In fact, that's my struggle. Mentally, I'm 1,000% in the village. Physically, I have to go back and forth. So that mental shielding needs to be done. And then the final group of folks that fail are people, actually two groups. One, people who come back home and they find surprises with family. I've seen people who left their wives back in the village who had family. Then you come back home and you realize that the people you thought are family don't even want you around. These people have no time to, they only valued you when you were abroad and you were able to do things for them. But now that you're around, you're able to do your own stuff, they don't want you around. Yet your best networks were out there. So these people often have a hard time adjusting. Lastly, the last group that fails miserably is people who financially are not prepared. Sometimes you think you have a lot of money until you come to Kenya, because Kenya can be as affordable as you make it, but it can also be very expensive. And oftentimes when I meet with people who have never been to Kenya, I give them examples. Let's say you're coming and first of all, you want some temporary place you live as you get to learn Kenya. You can live in a house that will cost you like maybe $5,000 plus in rent. But at the same time, you can live in a place that will cost you like maybe $200 or $300. But you've got those options. There are people who think because the dollar is strong, because the euro is strong, because whatever currency is strong, they think they have a lot of money. Wait till you show up to Kenya with whatever millions you have, and it'll evaporate in no time. In part because you're not prepared, in part because your spending habits have not adjusted. Sometimes these people come and they spend as if they're in a holiday. Living in Kenya long term is not the same thing as coming to visit. Like when you come visiting for like 2, 3 weeks, you're making it rain, you're traveling, restaurants, and all, that's not reality. If you're going to live in Kenya long term, or anywhere in Africa, all I say, hey, think about your spending like you would living anywhere else. So you can't just be running around spending money anyhow, visiting restaurants, traveling. I mean, some people can afford that. I have friends who are very rich, they can afford that. But for the average operator, the average Musoloete, you and I, take it easy. Spend where necessary. I tell folks that, honestly speaking, in the village, I, on an average, can live on pretty much less than maybe $400, $500 a month. I can live on that very comfortably. Very comfortably. But if you choose to make life expensive, you're going to go back. And again, like I say, Kenya is not for everybody. If you've never lived in Kenya, all I say, come visit Kenya, explore different parts of Kenya. Come at different times and decide if this is for you. Kenya is wonderful. We have a fantastic experience. We've got our issues, of course. But Africa and Kenya is not for everyone. So this idea of relocation may be exciting, may sound romantic, but the reality of it may not be what you're looking for. So you need to decide, is this for you or not? And have you done the work it takes? Then lastly, I know YouTube, we share so much. Going for information on YouTube and Google and all that is not enough. Remember, we only share, like for me, I only share about just 2% of my life here. There's a whole lot about life that you will not see here on online. So do your homework, take your time, put in the work, and don't make that mistake of one way ticket without a backup plan. Always have a backup plan. That is, in case it doesn't work, always have a backup plan. Well, thank you guys for listening. I know this was longer than 10 minutes. Probably I'm just sleepy. So anyway, Dotinda.